Good morning, Dearborn County. Just getting ready to pull out of the shop here and had some thoughts about the sheriff race. Just want to share a couple things. Our sheriff is really important. Who the sheriff is, extremely important race. And there's a very legitimate fear and concern that the 2028 presidential elections are a toss-up. Nobody knows how that's going to go. And if we, for those of us who are conservative and really had a lot of concerns with how 2020 was handled, and the WHO and the World Economic Forum and all these other things, the Klaus Schwabs, and for those of you who say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, my opinion of people who start calling people conspiracy theorists in this day and age is they just have a cognitive dissonance problem and they're brain dead. If you can't look at facts and see some legitimate concerns or argue through some tough issues, I think people just have a mental problem, or they're mentally lazy and they don't want to entertain the idea that there is a legitimate power struggle going on a global level. When things like that happen and everybody points at the federal government and they point at the other party, whichever party you are, they typically do a lot of blaming on things that they have no control over. When your federal government fails you and your state, like ours does, that we had a governor who, his Secretary of Education ran for governor on the Democratic ticket, but he's a Republican. And his lieutenant governor was probably one of the more liberal candidates on the Republican ticket. When you see that stuff happen, the federal government fails you, and then your state just fails you, what do you have left to protect you? Your county government. And when it comes to situations of liberty and constitutional rights and resistance of tyranny from a federal government, man, that sheriff it's everything. It really is. And so naturally, people should be very concerned about the sheriff election coming up. And people are evaluating who to vote for. I know for some of you, it's an easy pick. You've known one candidate a really long time, or some of us, maybe you know both candidates, and man, I really like them both. Some people it's a little bit of a stronger scenario. And I've gotten a lot of calls, not a lot, but seeing some content, one side or the other. Well, such and such candidate doesn't look professional. This person is, people pick and choose over different issues. And I would just remind people to try and look past all of that and see the bigger picture and see the greater importance of how this election may or may not affect your life. And don't think of, the primary is in 3 weeks away. Think of the primary as whoever wins this will be the sheriff in 2030. And it really does come down to not two different people, but two different voting blocks. That's what this election comes down to. Mark my words, May 5th is a generational election for Dearborn County, Indiana. It really is. It's going to determine whether or not the club that's had a significant amount of influence in our county government for decades can retain their seat for another 2 to 4 years until we have another election. For the sheriff, 4 years. Or it's going to decide whether or not the people really rise up and vote in the grassroots ticket, which the grassroots ticket is not perfect. The grassroots ticket is made up of a bunch of normal people who weren't involved in government before. But their heart is in the right place, and they're doing the best they can. And they're not professional campaigners. They're doing things on a shoestring budget. and a lot of times for the first time, but it's organic. And I will tell you this, as somebody who's been one of the leaders in the grassroots, not because of a position or a title, but just because I'm doing a lot. I will commit to you this, and this is what I've said this to a bunch of people behind closed doors. I envision a party, a Dearborn County Republican Party that is run by the people, not whoever's in charge of the party. And I will make this known that if the grassroots wins the majority control of county government, or ever wins control of the party, that you, the grassroots, will still get to have picks. We will encourage competition among the candidates. And I had this conversation with Commissioner Bischoff multiple times over the last 6 months. I said, Dwayne, I hope you run for re-election. When he first ran, he said, I'm doing one term and I'm done. This is ridiculous. I said, Dwayne, you can't just do that. I see how it goes. I would love to vote for you a second time. I think he's been great. I think there's been a lot of transparency and common sense. I think he's brought some balance to the commissioner board. And but I've told him myself, I said, Dwayne, you ought to pick somebody. The people deserve a pick. I would love for you to run again. I would love to vote for you a second time. But go find somebody who, if you weren't running, you think that they would make a great pick and they would be a good option. And tell them to run. I don't care if they want to endorse you and say, hey, I'd rather not do it. But find somebody who would be good. And then you know what? Let the people decide. And if I were in charge of the Republican Party, that's how we'd be running the Republican Party. I don't care if it's prosecutors or judges or senators or congressmen or freaking the governor. I don't care. There's no point in having an election if there's just one person on the ballot. And that's what this primary comes down to. This primary comes down to the people that have been running things for a long time, and some of them are good people. I know we're a small community; everybody knows everybody, but they've not been giving you the power of choice. They've been putting their person on the ballot through special elections. They call them caucuses. They've been moving people around, players around, so when they run, they're the incumbent, and then they hope that somebody's not running against them. And if they do, they have time and again kicked people off the ballot so that their only one person is on there. Do you know why Jason Wyatt's the people's pick? Whether you vote for him or not, the only reason you get a choice in this sheriff election is because Jason Wyatt agreed to stick his head out there and say, hey, I'll be an option for you. And this is what I'll do if I become sheriff. You don't have a choice. And I'll tell you one more. I got a phone call back in fall of last year. The establishment's pick was in Aurora, and talked to somebody in Aurora and said, hey, what's up with so-and-so? And, well, I'll say it. It was Mike Perdeni who called me. You guys have seen his video, almost 10,000 views at this point. He said, hey, got a call from somebody. The establishment's pick down there said, hey, what's up with Mike Perdeni and Uncle Sam trying to find a primary for me? And I'll tell you, before that, I'd never met Carl. I don't know anything about him, but I thought, how arrogant. You think that you're just going to sign up and become the most powerful man in the county? And you got a problem with me trying to make sure that the voters have competition and a choice? What's wrong with you? Did you not go to civics class? Seriously. It just irritates the crap out of me that this establishment thinks that they can jerry pick whoever they want. And we're just supposed to go along with it. Oh, and then if you dare to put somebody on the ballot against them, you're just negative and you're throwing mud. I got mud to throw. I'm not throwing mud. I'm talking about honest, legitimate concerns that we have and things that are relevant to our county. And I'm trying to bring the community into the conversation so that we have a community, citizen-led government, not a clique-led government. The whole thing ticks me off. But I pray that you'll actually take the time to meet some of these people running. Get to know them. And I know it might be a hard choice. But you know what, Dearborn County? Isn't that what we want? Don't we want to go to the polls and go, man, who do I pick? They're both good. Isn't that what we'd like to? That's what I'd like to get to in my country. I don't want to go to the polls having my mind made up, going, yep, well, it's God versus Satan. You know, we got the evil versus the angel. Nobody's an angel and nobody's, well, there are some people who are pretty evil. I'm not referring to anybody in county government, but you get the idea. Politics have become so black and white. And I would love if we could raise the bar, at least here in our county, to where we get to the point where it is a challenging decision for who you're going to vote for. And for me, I don't think we're there yet. For me, it's a black and white issue. Because I've seen the people who toe the party line and do what the party says, and the old party, the Rhino Party, I don't want anything to do with. I'm serious. Collectively, I think we need to wash the county of that and start fresh. And the fresh isn't going to be perfect, but the fresh is a whole lot better than the old bathwater. It's just time to throw it out. Make this primary too big to rig. Make it so overwhelming. If you don't vote for the next 10 years, vote in this primary. Because I guarantee you it is a monumental generational election for our county.